Good evening, everyone. Ooh, somebody heard me. Good evening, everyone. That was better. I'm going to try not to blow everybody out. Well, welcome to the August Delta Amateur Radio Club membership meeting. Welcome, everyone. How's everybody doing tonight?
Great. Okay.
I'm Jeff Kelly, and I'm the president. My call is November Sierra 4 Echo, and that's 4E. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. We'll get started here in just 1 second. I'll kick back to our secretary, Perry. If you just call a roll of the board real quick and let us know all who is here.
Yes, sir. President Joe Plunk.
Present.
Vice President Tyler Henley.
Present.
Secretary Perry Hayes, present. Treasurer Paul Broom. Here. Director of Training Joe Lowenthal.
Here.
Repeater Trustee Dan Fleet.
Here.
Director of Meetings and Special Events Scott Adams.
Present.
Director of Programs Adam White.
Present.
Director of Publications Jonathan Herschel.
Present.
Club Historian John Reiners. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Perry. Appreciate that. All right, we'll do a real quick introduction. There's lots of people here. That's always fantastic. I want to take a minute, and a couple of the past articles that I've written in Sparks have been about people. So I want to take tonight, and we've got a good crowd here tonight, so I don't want to take everybody and have a long explanation, but I do want to take a minute and have everybody introduce themselves as we go around the room, and we'll start usually over there. Start with Tyler. And introduce yourself, give your call so we can put a name to a face, and the one thing I want to hear is the person that influenced you into the hobby. We haven't asked that question this year yet, so I want to hear a little bit. Don't have a long story, just the person and how they were significant. So that brings the connection to people back to how someone brought you to the hobby or how a person impacted you into the hobby. Tyler, we'll throw it over to you.
All right, Tyler, Kilo Quebec 4, Quebec Echo Victor. When I was in Boy Scouts, there was a ham radio thing. I got my merit badge, and then somehow waited 20 years to wind up coming into the hobby. There you go. Yeah, no, on the spot.
John, KO4WAQ, I'm a relatively new man. I haven't been in the hobby for too long. So probably some of the people that have influenced me are in the room, actually. Joe is probably one of them. A great hand as well as hand over. So that's what I'm
Thank you. We'll move over to you.
I'm Clement, KQ4TQB. The person that was actually two people that got me into the hobby was Michael Harrison and James Sterling.
Fantastic. Dan?
I'm Dan, AA4DF. Kind of got into the hobby myself, but once I got in there, I met a guy, Dave, 89FN. It's been about 30 years ago. We're still friends. He got me on the fire department there. And that got me down the road and spending lots of time too. And we still meet up every year at Dayton, and a bunch of us stay together and hang out for the weekend. So, and he's always one of those, like, I can call him up and say, hey, what about this? And he'll give me an answer, or he'll say, hey, I'll call this guy and he'll give you a call back. So I really appreciate that from you.
I'm John, KQ4ILS. I actually got two people that got me interested in amateur radio. In the beginning, my brother Matt and I were big into the CB side. We used to watch movies with truck drivers that would talk on them. That's really what kind of got us influenced in it. But after a few years, we worked with Hugh Wardlaw, WB4 SLI, and he influenced us to get our tech license and kind of step away from CB because the world of amateur is so much different. And so we waited a few years, and then I ended up working with Aaron Alexander at KI4OTH, and then he influenced me to finally go ahead and take my tech license and get it 2 years ago, so here I am now. With my extra, sorry.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt, KQ4YPO.
So yeah, Hugh encouraged us years ago, and then Aaron also encouraged us, and then also once Josh got his tech in general, there was another coworker of ours who's big into amateur radio, and he's like, "All right, man, you gotta get yours." And about 8 months to a year later, I finally got mine as well.
Joe, WA4OVO, in 1975, a friend of mine, K4PEV, called me and said there was a class starting up in February, and I signed up for it and have been pretty active ever since.
Ham, W4GMM. Person that influenced me was W4GMM, my father. He was licensed in 1939. I built my first radio in sophomore in high school. Unfortunately, I found that little things like skirts were a whole lot more interesting than ham radio. So I didn't get my license too much longer after that. But and when he changed his call sign to K4SP, I grabbed his call sign. And so, and he is now a silent key, but he's been the influence in my life as far as ham radio.
I'm Don, Kilo Zulu 4 Golf Juliet. You may have heard me on the radio once or twice. But the person that got me most introduced me to ham radio was my uncle. It was WA4EWK, and that was back in the 60s and 70s. But I was too lazy to want to learn Morse code. I'm like, ham here, the skirt's taken as a picture. So 50 years later, 50 years, I got my license. And I've had a lot of people encourage me and help me. A lot of them are in this room. Thank you.
I'm Marlon, KM4DPP, and I was going to say the ones that helped me get my license and actually encouraged me to go forward with it was my late uncle Bunny Mintz, and on top of that, my other cousin Jay Mintz, and along with another friend of mine that also wanted me to actually really get involved more on the Morse code side of it and all that. He already became a science. James Boyd, and then again, a lot of other people here also helped influence me along with Joe. Come on, Paul.
Jose, KJ4TCJ. 1965, I was applying to a training in the Marines as a radio telegrapher. Then went to Vietnam and then went to tanks. Then just got away from radio altogether with aviation. And then it was 30 years with the Marine Corps, and then 25 with FedEx, and then Jim Sissel, who was a church member with me, talked to me about being a radio operator, get me back to radio. And here I am 25 years later. Started doing it.
He got his license in a very hot July afternoon at Ellendale when there was no air.
I'm Mike, WA2AW. Back in high school, I was very involved in CB as well, many you gentlemen here. And when I went to engineering school in New York City, my roommate was a very active ham, and he convinced me to take my tech license and opened up that world to me. He's very involved, he's in Atlanta now, but it was because of his interest in me, converting me from CB to ham, is the reason why I got into that and went on to get my extra license as well.
I'm Justin, KW4SX. First got interested in it because my grandfather was really big into CB when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And then he quit it for some reason, I don't know. And then 9 years ago, one of my buddies convinced me, he begged me to take Joe's class with him. And then my buddy quit the class after the first session. I just stuck in it, got my license, and then, I don't know, I just stopped messing with it. And now it's been almost a full decade, so I'm here again.
He tested for tech, general, and extra all in one session.
I'm Bob, KM4 SEB, and I took a CERT class in Germantown. And during that class, they were talking about ham radio. So I ended up taking a course there under Jelly, and gave my general, and Tom here's been my elbow.
So Elmer, in the ham radio world, for those who are new, and Elmer's a mentor. If you're not familiar with our jargon.
I'm Tom, AC5MR, and I first got indoctrinated in hearing about ham radio. My godfather, my dad's first cousin, big ham in Sharpton, Mississippi. He owned the radio stations there and all that stuff. I remember being over his house as a little kid and he had all those heat kits. I didn't know what it was back then, you know. He had a 6-foot tower and beam on it and all that. I thought, man, that's pretty neat, all this stuff. I didn't think much about it. Got a little older and all, and well, and I think it was late 80s, in the early 90s, I started messing around with CB radio. So, you know, then it was after the 1970 CB craze, so it was less sophisticated, you know, a lot of hooligans and roughnecks and cursing and all that. I didn't care for that too much. One of the hometown people, another thing, I got the hometown guy in my hometown of Aberdeen who introduced me to ham radio. I remember in the late 1960s, my dad had built a cable system in Aberdeen at a 300-foot tower, and I remember the hams, one of them was city electric department manager, Doyle Herndon, and they approached my dad and wanted to put this thing called a repeater on his tower at 300 feet so they could have good coverage. So I remember them coming over and bringing the equipment, setting it up inside the head end at the bottom of the tower and doing all that stuff. So that was the VHF side of it. So then later on, after I got where I didn't want to put in CB, that fellow ham and Aberdeen showed me that ham radio, but he showed me the VFH and UHF repeater stuff, and there wasn't anybody talking. And I said, there are more people talking on CB than this. But he didn't show me HF. But anyway, I finally got into the hobby on it. Later on, I went and I said, why did you show me HF first? Because then I would hear a lot of people talking, you know. So anyway, that's how I got into it.
I'm Jim in 4VOK. I was living in Washington, D.C., and a guy I worked with, his desk was across from mine, was a warrant officer in the Marine Corps, Harry Aaron. He was a big-time ham, good guy, and he got me interested and got me started. And I think you had to do 5 words per minute at the time to get your novice. And if you were, I think the rule was if you were an extra, you could give the exam, or you could give that part of the exam, I think. Anyway, so pretty sure he gave me the test after I learned the alphabet. So he got me started.
I'm Tom. I went to a field day out of Blue. That was about 12 years ago. Met Joe, ended up taking a class, and that's it.
I'm Keith, KJ4, DGQ. 2 people actually helped me get started. One was Ryan Elligood, my nephew, in Union City, and then when I moved to Memphis, I worked with Pat Lane at WKNO, and he's the one that really got me to jump in and go head first.
And we'll jump back to Perry and Paul's table.
I'm Perry, November 4 Golf Juliet. My uncle got me involved in ham radio. He was a big HF guy. And he had a very interesting kind of an A-frame house, and he built a little shack up in the top with a ladder that you had to climb up to get to it. He always tried to encourage me. I never had much interest, and finally he went to Dayton one year and got me all 3 of Gordon West's books, and he got me an HF radio, and he said, "You're going to do this?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And found my first exam in Olive Branch and met up with Joe in the parking lot, and Joe's been a big help to me as a hand.
Randy, KQ4HJH. About 50 years ago, I was 15, something like that. My buddy Les, I went to church with Les Berryman. His dad, Hoyt Berryman, had a shortwave radio and would talk to missionaries. This is a church family friend in Tyler, Texas. And put your hand over your heart. Mr. Hoyt would talk to this missionary down in South America. Very short story. He had a son that was Les's age and my age, and so we got to talk. I don't know the rules we were supposed to or not, but we got away with it. And but with Hoyt supervising, obviously. And, yeah, there you go. So I went to Baylor University for my undergraduate degree, and in class one day, there he gives his name, here, and it's the same kid that was a missionary kid that I talked to when I was 15. And so I've had this attraction to the hobby, and the one that really influenced me was Melanie Red. That's my wife, and she said, you talk about this, you just need to get online and find something. And I found the Delta Club, and I found out who the trainer was. Everybody mentions Joe, and I'm going to mention him too. And it's good when you talk to somebody that's got the passion he has, because it's infectious. So that's how I got drawn into the hobby.
I'm Paul, Kilo 84 Mike X-Ray. I actually kind of got started reading some fiction about emergency communications, and one of the guys I worked with was actually big into the civil defense and that kind of stuff down in South Haven. And so I started asking him about it, and he pointed me, like Randy sort of, to the Delta Club and ultimately to Joe. And so that's kind of how I got my start. I took his tech class, passed tech in general, and then later took his extra class and got that as well.
Get up. I'm Barry with WB Forest WP. I have my father's call. He was a ham. Was not interested in hamming when he was. I was at school, and the person that influenced was Bill Stevens. I took a CERT class, like you said, and they did ham radio, and Bill said, you need to get your license. I said, well, I don't know code, and he said, you don't have to know code now. Just take the test. So I took the test, and then Pat Lane was Elmer, and he was my best friend.
I'm Ned, Kilo Alpha 4 Bravo Lima Lima. My grandfather is the one that got me into electronics at an early age, 3 or 4. He was an avid shortwave listener back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And he encouraged me to dabble in electronics, build radios. Built my first one before I went to elementary school, and then built Heathkit, all band receive HF radio to 30 megahertz. When I was about 10 years old, and then when I was 11, I built Andy Talkie was on CB. Then wound up going into the military and had aircraft radio training school for 22 weeks that I went through there. When I came back out, I was avid into CB radio, even with some groups over in Texas and Austin. And when I came back out of there to Memphis, I got involved with some radio control boats. And Bill McLaughlin, I don't know if anybody here knows him, but he's an old-time ham here. He was operating with ham radio frequencies. And so he said, well, you ought to get your ham license and then you can get on ham radio frequencies and don't have to fight for the ones that are on the 27 megahertz band. So that's what I did, but I never did get my radio for that. So I wound up more involved in the CW and the 2 meter 440 avenues of radio. Of course, I got my ham license about 1977, so getting close to being 50 years.
Thank you, Ned. Move to the next table.
Well, I'm Ron, Kilo 4 Mike Alpha X-ray. I took a cert class in Collierville and volunteered with the Red Cross, and that's how I got interested in emergency communications. And I don't remember who got me onto Joe's class, but that's where I went. Here I am.
Lee, if you took a cert in Collierville, it was Lee.
Oh, Lee Race, exactly.
Yes.
That was it.
I'm Dan Can for FBJ. Got interested because of Field Day and Joe, and that's it.
I am Janet KN4 FBI, and I got interested because I was retired and I wanted a challenge. And I was about ready to give it all up until I got the call letters FBI, and I knew I could remember them.
I'm Joe, Kilo Oscar 4 Bravo Zulu Delta. I have 2 influences. When I was a kid, we had a neighbor about 3 houses down. He was a little man named Joe South. He was from Scotland. He was a projectionist of Malcolm Driving, but he was a radio operator in the British Army in North Africa. And he would come down the house with 2 pony beers. He would sit and talk to my mother because his wife had passed away. He'd drink one, and by about the time he got to the second one, he would sit on the floor and he'd say, "Hey, Jimmy," and he'd start tapping that Morse code. I did not take advantage of this. I regret it to this day. And my good friend and former boss at FedEx named Steve Stewart, KT4TK. And I knew that he had his license and he also encouraged me.
I'm Brandon Stewart. I'm new here. My grandfather got me into ham radio, and I have a little book here just to bring along to show people, just a 102-year-old book on Radio Simplified. We did a lot together, everything from planes, building model boats, this, that, and the other, but he was just big into ham radio for many, many years, WE5Y. He's encouraged me to get into ham radio as well, just for the fun of it. But you know, as time goes on, he's 90 years old now, and things are getting passed on to me. So, but the one thing he doesn't want to pass anything on with is the ham radio equipment just yet. So he said, go ahead, get your call sign, do this first, go ahead and pass the test. So I have the books, I cracked them open, I looked at them a little bit, but I haven't really dove into it. But this is my first meeting to come in and say hello to everybody, and who wants to see a 102-year-old?
There are lots of people here. We'll get to make sure to help get you helped out. Yeah. We'll come up to this front table. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm Taylor. I don't know of anybody specifically that influenced me to become a ham, but I've always admired people that knew how to work radios and understood them and could fix them. And I figured that if I found a ham radio club, I could hang out with such people. So here I am.
I'm Dave, Alpha Delta 4 Quebec, and my uncle, who
who was 20 months older than me. His next door neighbor, two boys and the dad were in the ham radio, and they got my uncle interested in it. So he got me interested in it at probably about 10 or 11 years old. I got my license when I was 13, and he helped me. Back when the guys that lived next door, I think you had to have a general back then to get it. Somebody give you the test. Whoever was talking about that, to give you the novice test.
Yeah, general.
So he gave me the test. I passed it, but I was still a little weak on the code. I could do 5 words a minute, but when you're trying to communicate with somebody, you get nervous and you can't remember, what you're doing. So anyway, he helped me with my first contact. And he said, tell him your name. My name is Dave, okay? My real name is David. 5 letters. He says, your name now is Dave. 4 letters. So ever since I was 13, I became Dave. That's it.
I'm Norm, KO4QLD. My cousin Fred Berger, K4LJF, got me into ham radio when I was 13. That's been a few years ago. And I was a shortwave listener for a number of years, and then you have a family and you do this, that, and the other. And about 3 years ago, I got interested again. He's still helping me, and Dave Church does too. I run most of the old vacuum tube equipment that mostly is down more than up, but I have a good time and I like to fix things. So it's been a great time. And I thank Fred, still helping me, and Dave too.
I'm Mark, KO4KQA, and my grandfather was down many years ago. I remember him having a shortwave, listening to France with a coat hanger sticking in the back of the radio. My uncle, Ronnie Davis, is the one who really got me into the Scouts, and there was a radio merit badge. He was a big CB'er, had a full HP in his car, a phone patch, and we'd be going down the road, he'd be calling home, hey, get dinner ready. So he got me through that and took a class at the Christian Brothers College at the time and passed my test for novice. Got kind of disinterested, let it go for about 3 decades, and here recently, a few years ago, decided to get back into it. Having a good time.
Hi, my name is Michelle Duck. I came from Taiwan. My husband, Harry Duck, got me started. But I passed my license 3 years ago. My call sign is a Kilo November 4, Oscar Echo 4. That's my husband, Harry Duck.
It's the old bag.
Yeah.
And your brain.
No, first one, only one.
My name's Harry Doc, KB4WRT, 21-year retired Marine. And what got me started back in my high school days, I was in CB when they actually had call signs. Yeah. Mine was KNM 5322, I still remember. And from then in the Marine Corps, I was a comm nav tech, repaired comm navigational equipment. And from there, progressively went on. I got my ticket back in mid-70s. And I have an advanced ticket. I never went beyond that because it's novel. They don't have those anymore. So I stayed at that. And the reason that I came today, and I'm going to use this time to mention this, is that I'm here actually looking for somebody that is an expert on UHF, VHF, as far as ham radio goes. I've been an HF person my entire life, but because my wife got the ticket and she's had problems with strokes, cancer, and everything else, I figured if I would get into UHF, VHF, get her set up at the house, and I carry around one handset. If her cell phone ever goes out, I don't have a cell phone. I taught college and I refuse to be as stupid as my students are. So I figured if I get her, get the ham set up at the house and me with the handheld, we can communicate at any time that I'm not at home. So if anybody, I live in Millington, if anybody would be willing, I wrote down addresses and everything else. I'd be willing to either come to your place or you can come and help me get set up. So that's it.
I am sure that there will be plenty of people who will find you in a few minutes.
Good. All right, let's go back to the table of Rich. Richard.
I'm Colin, KR4 FWQ. I got my call sign on Friday. My dad here is the one who got me into it. He has all his gadgets around the house. He got a computer set up, a few antennas here and there, a lot of radios. And I was like, hey, might as well try my hand at them. So here I am now.
So glad to have you here.
I'm Colin's dad. I'm Charlie, KR4BNS. I spent the first part of my career doing international disaster work, and I came across a lot of radio operators in the field, and I thought it was kind of cool, and gadgets, toys are my thing, buying toys, figuring out how they're fun and how they get me to the next one. And so when I was doing an overlanding truck build more recently, I was like, you know what, okay, what's comms going to be? And I thought GMRS, and I did GMRS, and it has its own limitations. I thought, I can do better than that, I can do ham. And so I did ham. So I kind of learned it from there and joined the club to learn more about how do I maximize.
I'm Earl, KK4PRV. I just went to one of Joe's classes, and then I ended up with a bunch of Elmers over here that I'm sitting with. I'm Richard, K4DXF. Got me interested in it when I was a teenager. I built Crystal Radio, and every night all I could hear was Erwin Abels, who lived 2 houses from me, talking on, I think it was 6 meters. And I could only hear one side of all his conversation. And so fast forward, I don't know, 20 years or so, saw him here driving around the lot in his truck we called the cane ticket at Bell South, later AT&T, or back again to AT&T. And then I went with my wife to a luncheon. The program there was Joe Lowenthal teaching what amateur radio can do in case of a disaster. So he happened to be sitting next to me. So when he sat down, I asked him, he said, I'm teaching the class, you miss one lesson, I'll catch you up. So I did that. And here's some of my elders around, Elmers around. I just had to do that to him.
Okay, I grew up in Scottsdale. What's your name? Oh, Rick, N0KYN. I grew up in Scottsdale, and I was an avid shortwave listener. And I got a summer job at a framing studio in Scottsdale. And, I got to frame all these certificates and pictures of Barry Goldwater when he ran for president. And so Pat O'Brien said, Rick, load them all up, take them up to his house. So I said, okay. So I loaded them up in my dad's station wagon, took them up to this house on the hill there over Phoenix, and knocked on the door. And you know, when you see people on TV, they're this tall. And so he answered the door, and he had a t-shirt and cut off jeans with frayed jeans, and he was about this tall. And I go, I'm here for Barry Goldwater. He says, I'm Barry Goldwater. I said, I'm here from Pat O'Brien's studio, and I got all these pictures for them. He says, okay, bring them to my ham shack. And so I carried they were all wrapped in paper, and we crossed his pool to his ham radio shack that was out there by his pool. And after we got all done, I said, what is all this? I said, I'm a shortwave listener, and I'm into CB. He says, I'm a ham radio operator. I said, oh, what's that? Even though I heard him on shortwave, I didn't really put the connection to the two. And he sat there for an hour and a half, and told me about ham radio and showed me how
he operated radio, and his call was K7UGA. And so I thought, that's neat, it's interesting. Well, I was a sophomore in high school, and somebody else mentioned here, sports and girls became more interesting than ham radio. And I got drafted into the service, and I joined the Navy versus I didn't want to go to the jails in Vietnam, so I joined the Navy. And I got out of the Navy, went to Arizona State, and got my degree, and after that I got back into radio, and I met up with a guy, and he said, what you did in the ham radio? And I did, and that's what I've done. So I would say Barry Goldwater was the first.
Not many people can say that.
Yeah. And some of you are probably too young to remember Barry.
Rick Tillman, 4 NBM, according to Errol, the captain of the ship I was on, told me to get my license. His name was Christopher Columbus.
Did you take your exam with a tablet and a chisel or like?
No, the fellow employee, Joel Gresham, told me about an article in the newspaper back in '76 that the VHF club that met at the Red Cross building was having their first class. So we attended that and got our license back then. And pretty much the end of it there, it's been downhill. I've been a big VHF, UHF type.
Right.
And fellow hams that we grew up with, that was a medical doctor going through UT, he said, that's the baloney band. HF's the only way, they don't get you done all.
Yeah, but tell them about Amstead.
It's my pleasure.
We'll do that on the break. Don't ever look at the next thing.
Hey, I'm Zach, K4ZJJ. I'm fairly new to this, but I kind of got myself into it. I was bored, didn't really have anything else to do, so just kind of fell into it.
I'm Bill, K4PSH. The person that influenced me was my father. He was my influence and also my very first contact. And I contacted him the day that I opened the envelope, when you still got it in the mail.
I'm Will, KQ4FUM. Person that influenced me the most is probably somebody named Jack. Their call sign is KO4MNQ. I went to high school with them. They ran a repeater, but I think they turned it into an APRS node now. But I really got into radio when I was going out to spot trains. They used to do that every once in a while. He would bring his little VHF radio with him and listen to the train frequencies. But he also had his license. We talked about amateur radio and everything. We got talking, it sounded really interesting. I took my test online and I got my license.
Hello, my name's Dana, WI3B. I first saw my first ham radio set as a Boy Scout at Camp Kaikima, and I went home and taught myself code, and we could take the test by mail for a novice. I looked in QST, and there was a section manager that lived in Memphis, and I called him, and he said, come on over, and I took the test, and I became WN4 KRP, and ever since.
I'm Larry, I'm Kilo Romeo 4, Delta Foxtrot uniform, I'm new. Always played with CDs and scanners, and just kind of transitioned into a ham license.
I'm John, Kilo Oscar 4 Zulu Quebec Sierra. I guess the person who influenced me the most, though it wasn't intentional, was my father. He was a ham back probably in the 30s and 40s. His call back then was W4CPO. And he just did it, and I kind of thought, well, if he did it, I ought to do it. So I electronics has always been a bit of a mystery to me. I kind of understand it, but not completely. So I did the studying. I got into it first back in the, I guess it was the early 80s. And that was in Pennsylvania. And then I got a call in Indiana when I moved there, came down here, let it lapse. And so just recently I got started again and got my new call. So that's it.
I'm Bob, it's KR4EXD. I'm new, and but I guess my biggest influence was my dad. He, way back in the 70s, he was a big CBer, and I just loved to listen. He had so much fun talking to people and having a good time. It was pretty clean back then. It was pretty, and I always kind of wanted to do it too, but I kind of held on to that, and I got into, in 2020, I got into do-it-yourself electronics, playing around as a hobby. And I started reading, and all these little things come with little antennas and stuff, and I said, I don't really understand how an antenna works. So I started reading, and I got a lot of information, but I also, a lot of the information was for people that were ham radio operators. So I ended up reading a lot about ham radio that I didn't know before, and I really got interested in early July. I got my technician's license.
I'm Joe, Kilo Mike 4, Juliet X-Ray Sierra, and long about the time I turned 12, I got a walkie-talkie, for a birthday present, and I thought that was pretty cool to be able to talk to complete strangers anywhere around you. And the first person, I guess, that influenced what I was doing was a guy by the name of Scrubrush. You ever heard of him? He was on CBs up there in southern Indiana, and I guess he was probably the one that was closest to where I was located, so that's why I picked him up on the radio. And of course, we used to annoy him, anybody else that had a walkie-talkie. Hey, Scrubrush, how you doing? Whatever. And of course, with the rules then, you weren't supposed to talk to somebody with walkie-talkie like that. Anyway, fast forward to high school. They had hand club, got involved with that. Morse code was a requirement. Didn't quite get it, so I had to kind of pass on by that. So a few years later, I'm in the Navy. Ended up working on underwater communications equipment, and that is a completely different animal than ham radio. I'm talking to the fish. So that was also about the time that I really got into CB radio. Of course, it had the mobile unit, had the base unit, and all that, and that was interesting. When I got out of the Navy, shortly thereafter, I started working toward a pilot's license, of course, on aviation radios then. And it wasn't until about 2015, I guess, I said, with preparedness, it really makes sense to get a ham license. So I started looking online, I found the Delta Club, and soon found Joe Lowenthal and got into his class. And it's history since then. I just enjoy everybody here, all the influence for the positive influence for all the new hams. So I appreciate all of it.
I'm John, KK4LST, and when I was a kid, I had the walkie-talkies, and then when I got into high school, some friends had CDs in their cars, so we kind of did that, and I had a scanner, and then I kind of got away from it, any interest in electronics, and then I was in South Florida, and when Hurricane Andrew hit, it was like a wake-up call, 2 or 3 weeks, no power, you couldn't get information, and so it brought that back up in my mind that maybe I ought to look at some kind of communication. My job ended up having to move out of state, and my wife stayed in South Florida, and I was doing back and forth, so I had some downtime. So I looked up a radio club in Alabama, Southeast Alabama, and got in touch with the guys in the Dothan Wiregrass Amateur Radio Club, and they just helped me so much grasp what I needed to know and get through the test. And so in 2012, I took the technician and passed. And then moved here, and I was able to upgrade to my general in 2022. Joe helped me out and took his class, and so that was it. I don't really have a specific mentor, but a bunch along the way.
How you doing? I'm Sean, KQ4K&I. Back about 30-something years ago, me and my brother were home from college, and a friend of mine, my brother's best friend, says, "Sean, does your father have some sort of spy device up in your bedroom or something like that?" I said, "Sure, I don't think so." He said, "Is there not a bear that way?" Turns out we plugged in a microphone to our DJ setup, and we had a wireless transmitter that was, we just turned the amps off. So you could hear everything that we were saying in the bedroom for I don't know how long. Anyways, I was fascinated that he was able to find this out and all the other things. So he was really my big inspiration. And so I got I came to the club about 3 years ago, met Joe, and I got my amateur and general, and still going.
I'm David, 5 letters. Always wanted 4 letters, but my speech impediment made people think I was saying Steve instead of Dave. So anyway, WNC, KN4WGY, call letters, and it was almost 60 years ago up in a little town in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I was about 5, and my oldest brother was 10 years older. At the age of 15, he had gotten some licenses, and my parents let him set up the little ham shop in the cellar with a dirt floor, and he was very happy there. And I would sit on the little wooden steps going down to that cellar and listen to him talk to people around the world. As a teenage boy, that was very of interest to him, but as a little boy, I was fascinated. And of course, remember when they would be sending those cards when they talked to somebody, and I had great fun going through those cards and seeing all the pictures, and probably didn't even know how to read, but that left an impression of his enthusiasm and his interest. So when he was on his deathbed here some 50-some years later, it came up that he and I talked and reminisced about that, and I said, someday I would like to get back to some of that enthusiasm in my life in a wonderful way that involves people, and kind of made a promise to him that I would try to do that. So thanks to another influencer here that's been mentioned, Joe, Instructor Joe, got I guess the Technician of General licenses, and then thanks to President Joe, who has been kind of an elder to me in a good way to help set up the radio, and thank you for what you've done there. And it was not a waste of time, but you might think so. I am hoping to really get more into it here in the near future, but you all have been truly motivational. Some of you have had some good talks, inspired me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I am newly licensed about like an hour and a half ago. So. Which is WA4ZHH, and he got his stuff going in 1977. I always saw him doing all that stuff in my childhood. Had a big old tower that we climbed on when we weren't supposed to. And also just my stepdad, who was also in my life, our family on his side, we have an FAA repair station, avionics shop, and so comm nav equipment and all that kind of stuff. So I've like seen radios, but I never really understood it. But after my father passed away, I had this desperation to like, well, what's going to happen to WA4ZHH? Like, does it just disappear? And so I thought, well, can't we just like retire a call sign? And so I learned that no, you cannot, but you can take it, but you have to do the work and be a technician. So at least get your technician and be licensed. So I said, well, okay then. So I did that, and here I am. So I'm going to learn as much as I can and just go from there, and that's me.
Jim, KG4TCE, and I'm so far below the water level and this stuff that all I use is.
Well, Jim, thank you. All right, I appreciate everybody taking the time to do that. I really enjoyed that because one of the things that it highlights for me is the connections that are so important in this hobby, in this room. Go ahead.
What is your story, Joe?
So my story, good question. My story revolves around scouting. I attended Wood Badge in 2017, which is a scouting program. It's kind of the adult certification program. And one of the challenges in that I gave myself, because you have to have 5 personal challenges, and one of the personal challenges was to get my amateur radio license, which is something I had always wanted to do. So in 2018, I did that. And then in 2020, I got my extra. So it's been a lot of fun. HF bug bit. The world is my oyster, and I have a lot of fun with it. And make connections to people. And that's the story that I want to take real quick and have everybody kind of reminisce for just a second, because we took a little longer to do this tonight than I really anticipated. So I have to apologize for that. We got a guest speaker that we're going to jump into in just a second. But the connections and the people are what are so important. And I wanted everybody to hear that. Everybody has a person, everybody has a connection, and that's ham radio. That's what the hobby's all about. All right, we normally take a break. I'm going to dispense with the break and do a couple of things real quick. Hey, Ham, would you make the motion you normally make?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes and the treasurer's report as published in Spark.
Seconded by Don. So it's motion made, approved minutes as published in Spark, seconded by Don. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Fantastic. That is all of the business that we have to do. We'll get to our guest in just a second. Is there any board member that has a report that they would like to make? Yes, Joe.
I think I can speak without the mic. Tech class finished. We got 5 students got their license a week ago. We got past the test a week ago, Monday night, and the licenses came in on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. One other student, he was going to test tonight, but he had to work late, and he'll take it next week at either Hernando or Olive Branch, most likely. Next thing is Huntsville Hamfest. I sent out a letter or an email for everybody that's going to Huntsville about 4 o'clock as to be at Germantown Baptist Church by 6:20, because if you're not on that bus at 6:30, we're leaving. The only time that possibility that we won't leave is if the biscuits aren't there yet. So
the important things.
Anybody want to go to Huntsville on the bus? It's $120. See me. Also got equipment here that will go to Huntsville if you don't buy it tonight.
Thank you, Joe. Any other board member that would like to make a report? All right. Dan, do you have anything on the repeaters?
Just real quick, nothing broke this week. Yay! Jose brought me the section of antenna from the APRS. I thought, cool, maybe I can put it back together. This is what lightning did. I've talked to some of you on the repeaters and KR calls. You know, I'm not good with calls, names, or faces. So if I talked to you on a repeater in the last month and you're new, come by and say hey to me. And just thanks for all the help. Thanks for donation to the antenna. We're going to get the APRS back up.
Thank you, Dan. All right, we're going to turn right over and jump right into Adam, and you've got our program, so I'll let you introduce our guest, and we'll jump in. If anybody needs to grab anything, feel free to just wander over the break and get your stuff, but we're going to jump right into our program.